Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands and looked around the empty maintenance bay. The silence always got to him after 3 months alone on this floating rock. Keth 7 was barely an asteroid, just big enough for a mining station and small enough that everyone forgot it existed. He preferred it that way. After what happened on Europa Station, being forgotten seemed like a gift. The sound of something falling echoed from the lower levels. Marcus grabbed his toolkit and headed down the metal stairs. Probably another loose panel. Everything on Keth 7 seemed to be falling apart, just like him. But when he reached the storage level, he found something unexpected. A small figure crouched beside a pile of scattered supply crates, carefully placing protein bars back into a torn container. The figure wore the simple gray clothes of a station worker. But something was wrong. No Zilani moved like that. Zilani were graceful, always aware of everything around them through their bioelectric sight. This person moved carefully, feeling along surfaces with her hands. She was young, maybe 15 in human years, with the pale blue skin and tall frame of the Zilani species. But she moved like someone who could not see. Marcus stayed quiet and watched. The girl finished collecting the scattered food and turned to leave. That's when he saw her face clearly. Where other Zilani had small organs above their eyes that glowed softly with bioelectric energy, hers were dark and empty. She was blind, not just unable to see light like a human might be, but completely unable to sense the bioelectric fields that Zilani used instead of normal vision. Among her people, that made her worse than blind. It made her nothing. The girl started walking toward the exit, moving slowly with one hand trailing along the wall. She would pass right by Marcus unless he moved. He stayed still, not wanting to frighten her. But as she passed, she suddenly stopped. "Someone is there," she said in broken standard language. Her voice shook with fear. "Please. I was just cleaning up the mess. I did not steal anything." Marcus felt his heart break a little. How long had she been alone here? How long had she been afraid of every sound? "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm Marcus. I work here too. You don't need to be scared." The girl froze completely. For a moment, Marcus thought she might run. Then she turned toward his voice, her face showing confusion. "You talk to me?" she asked. "Why do you talk to me? Why wouldn't I talk to you?" "I am nothing," she said simply. "I am broken. I cannot." Marcus stepped closer, moving slowly so he wouldn't startle her. Now he could see how thin she was, how her clothes hung loose on her small frame. How long had she been surviving on scraps? "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated for a long moment. "Lysa. But names do not matter for the broken ones. Your name matters to me, Lysa. And you're not broken. You're just different." Lysa made a sound that might have been a laugh, but it held no happiness. "Different. Yes. I am the only Zilani who cannot see. I am the only one who moves in darkness, while others move in light. I am different, like a dead star is different from a living one." Marcus sat down on a nearby crate, putting himself at her eye level. "I can't see either. Humans don't have bioelectric sight at all. Does that make me broken too?" "That is different," Lysa said quickly. "Humans are not supposed to see. You have other gifts. But Zilani who cannot see are cursed. Everyone knows this." "Who told you that?" "Everyone. The teachers at school before they sent me away. The workers who come here sometimes. My parents." Her voice got quieter. "My parents said I was punishment for their sins. They said leaving me here was mercy because I could not survive in the real world." Marcus felt anger building in his chest. Not at Lysa, but at everyone who had convinced this smart, brave girl that she was worthless. He had met plenty of Zilani over the years. Most were decent people, but their culture had some ugly blind spots. Their treatment of those born without bioelectric sight was one of them. "How long have you been here alone?" he asked. 2 years, maybe 3. Time feels different when every day is the same. How do you survive? How do you get food? Lysa smiled for the first time, and Marcus saw how it transformed her face. I am very good at being invisible. People drop things. They leave food behind. They forget to lock storage rooms. And I am quiet. I know how to move without making sound. Marcus realized she was right. He had been on this station for 3 months and had never seen her before today. She had become a ghost, surviving in the spaces between other people's attention. You must be incredibly smart, he said. Learning to live here alone, finding food and shelter, staying hidden. That takes real skill. Lysa looked confused again. I just do what I must to live. There is no skill in it. There is, Marcus insisted. I've been here 3 months, and I still bump into things in the dark. You move around this place like you built it yourself. And your hearing must be amazing. You knew I was there before you could even smell me. My ears work well, because my sight does not, Lysa admitted. I can tell where people are by their breathing. I can hear machines before they break, by the small changes in their sound. I can feel air currents and know which passages lead where. Marcus leaned forward. That's not just compensation. That's a superpower. A what? Sorry, human saying. It means a special ability that others don't have. Lysa was quiet for a long moment. You are very strange, Marcus Chen. You speak to the broken one as if she has value. Because you do have value, more than you know. Marcus stood up and brushed dust off his clothes. An idea was forming in his mind. A crazy, probably impossible idea. But Marcus had always been good at impossible things. Lysa, he said. What if I told you there might be a way for you to see? Not the same way other Zilani do, but to see, nonetheless. Lysa went very still. I would say you are cruel to offer false hope to one who has none. It's not false hope. I'm an engineer. I solve problems. And I think your problem might have a solution. The doctors said nothing could be done. They said I was born wrong, and would always be wrong. Marcus smiled. Good thing I'm not a doctor. I'm just a human who doesn't know when to give up. For the first time since he had met her, Lysa looked directly at him. Her empty eyes couldn't see his face. But somehow, Marcus felt like she was really looking at him anyway. Why would you help me? She asked. Because someone should. Because it's the right thing to do. Because you deserve better than living like a ghost. Lysa was quiet for so long that Marcus wondered if he had said too much. Then, she spoke. So quietly, he almost missed it. What kind of seeing? Marcus spent the next 3 days reading everything he could find about Zilani biology. The station's medical database was limited, but it had enough information to get him started. What he learned fascinated him. Zilani didn't see light at all. Instead, they had special organs that detected bioelectric fields generated by living things. Every creature with a nervous system created small electromagnetic signatures, and Zilani brains processed these signatures into a kind of 3-dimensional map of everything alive around them. It was elegant and efficient, but also limited. Zilani could only see living things and certain types of electronic equipment. They were essentially blind to most of the physical world. They navigated by memory and by sensing the bioelectric fields of other people who could guide them. Marcus realized this was why their architecture was so simple, and why they relied heavily on voice commands for their technology. A species that couldn't see walls or furniture had developed very different solutions to everyday problems. But humans had technology that could detect electromagnetic fields. Marcus had worked with EM sensors, quantum field detectors, and neural interface systems. If he could combine them properly, he might be able to create an artificial version of Zilani Biosite. The hard part would be getting the device to connect with Lysa's brain in a way she could understand. Marcus found Lysa in the hydroponics bay, carefully tending to plants that fed the station's small population. She moved between the growing tables with confidence. her hands gently checking soil moisture and adjusting nutrient feeds. She knew this space perfectly. "How do you know which plants need what?" Marcus asked. "Each type feels different," Lysa explained without looking up. "The leaves have different textures. Different plants smell different when they are healthy or sick, and they make small sounds when you touch them. Happy plants sound different than sad ones." Marcus watched her work. Her movements were precise and gentle. She clearly cared for these plants, and they were thriving under her attention. "Lysa, I need to understand something about Zelani's sight. When your people see, what does it look like in their minds?" Lysa paused in her work. "I can only tell you what others have told me. They say it looks like colored light around living things. Different creatures have different colors and patterns. Strong emotions change the colors. Fear makes them darker. Joy makes them brighter. What about size? Distance? Bioelectric fields are stronger up close and weaker far away. A Zelani can sense another person from across a room, but they would not see details clearly. And very small living things, like insects, are too faint to notice unless they are very close." Marcus nodded. This matched what he had read in the medical files. "What about non-living things?" "Nothing. Electronics sometimes create fields that Zelani can sense, but rocks, walls, furniture, nothing. That is why we build our cities with simple layouts, and why we use audio guides for most tasks." An idea started forming in Marcus's mind. What if I told you there were other types of energy fields? Fields that could show you walls and furniture and the stars themselves? Lysa stopped working completely. "What do you mean?" "Humans have machines that can see all kinds of energy. Electromagnetic radiation, gravitational fields, quantum fluctuations. We can detect things that neither humans nor Zelani can see naturally. What if we combined human technology with what I know about how your brain is supposed to process bioelectric information? You want to build a machine that would let me see? More than see. I want to build something that would let you see better than any Zelani ever has." Lysa was quiet for a long moment. "The others who work here sometimes, they would not like this. Zelani believe that those born without sight are meant to remain without it. They believe it is natural law." "What do you believe?" "I believe I am tired of living in darkness while others live in light." Marcus smiled. "Then, let's build you some light." Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus worked on the device whenever he wasn't handling regular maintenance duties. He started with a standard EM sensor array, the kind used for detecting electronic interference in sensitive equipment. Then he added quantum field detectors borrowed from the mining equipment, and a neural interface headset normally used for remote equipment operation. The tricky part was creating software that could translate the sensor data into something resembling bioelectric vision. Marcus had to guess how Zelani brains processed the information, then program the neural interface to feed data in a similar pattern. Lysa helped however she could. She told him stories about Zelani culture and history while he worked. Many of these stories she had learned before her family abandoned her, in the short time when they still hoped she might develop normal sight. "There are old legends," she said one evening as Marcus calibrated sensors. "Stories about the first sight. Zelani ancestors, who could see more than we can now." "What kind of more?" "The stories say they could see the breath of the cosmos itself. The energy that flows between stars. The hidden patterns that connect all living things. But most Zelani think these are just children's tales." "What do you think?" "I think people tell stories about things they miss. Maybe our ancestors could see more, and we forgot how." Marcus paused in his work. "If that's true, then maybe what I'm building isn't giving you something new. Maybe it's giving you something back." The device itself was ugly. A headset covered in sensors and small antennas, connected to a processing unit the size of a lunchbox. But when Marcus ran the first tests, the results looked promising. The sensors were detecting and mapping electromagnetic fields exactly as designed. The neural interface was functioning properly. The software was translating sensor data into the kind of patterns a brain could understand. Now came the moment of truth. "Are you ready?" Marcus asked. Lysa sat in the workshop chair, the device in her hands. "What if it does not work? What if it hurts me? What if it works but I cannot understand what I see? Then we try again. We adjust it. We keep working until we get it right." Marcus sat down across from her. "But Lysa, you don't have to do this. If you're not ready, we can wait." "I have been waiting my whole life," Lysa said quietly. "I am ready to stop waiting." She lifted the headset and carefully positioned it over her eyes and forehead. Marcus helped her adjust the fit and connect the processing unit to her belt. "I'm going to start with very low sensitivity," Marcus said. "Just enough to detect strong electromagnetic sources. Tell me what you feel." Marcus activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. "There is light," she whispered. "Faint, but there is light. I can see the power conduits in the walls. The computer terminals. Your communication device." She turned her head toward Marcus, and for the first time, her empty eyes seemed to focus on his face. "I can see you." The next morning, Marcus found Lysa in the observation deck, still wearing the visor. She stood perfectly still, facing the large window that looked out into space. She had been there for hours. "Lysa, are you okay? I am seeing things that should not be possible," she said, without turning around. "Come, look with me." Marcus joined her at the window. Outside, he saw what he always saw: the black emptiness of space dotted with distant stars. "What are you seeing?" "Lines," Lysa whispered. "Rivers of energy flowing between the stars. Patterns that connect everything. And Marcus, the asteroid. Our asteroid. It is not what we thought it was." Marcus looked more carefully. Keth 7 looked like an ordinary rock to him. Gray and lifeless. "What do you mean?" Lysa raised her hand and pointed. "The visor shows me energy patterns carved into the surface. Geometric shapes too perfect to be natural. And deep inside the asteroid, there are chambers. Empty spaces arranged in precise patterns. This is not a natural rock, Marcus. Someone built this." A chill ran down Marcus's spine. "Built it? You mean like an artificial structure disguised as an asteroid?" "Yes. And more than that." Lysa turned to face him, her expression troubled. "There is something inside. Something that has been sleeping, but is starting to wake up because I can see it." Marcus felt his mouth go dry. "Not alive like you or me. But not dead either. It is aware, and it has been waiting." Before Marcus could respond, the visor made a soft, chiming sound. Lysa's eyes went wide, and she stumbled backward. Marcus caught her arm to steady her. "What's happening?" "It is trying to communicate," Lysa said, her voice shaking. "The thing inside the asteroid. It knows. I can see the patterns now. It is reaching out to me." The lights in the observation deck dimmed, then brightened, then settled into a steady pulse. Marcus looked around nervously. "Is that normal for the station's power grid?" "No," Lysa said. "It is not the station. It is coming from below us, from inside the asteroid." Marcus grabbed his toolkit and headed for the door. "We need to check the power systems. If something in the asteroid is affecting our electronics..." "Wait." Lysa's voice was strange now, distant. "It is not trying to hurt us. It is trying to show me something." She closed her eyes and stood very still. The pulsing lights around them began to form patterns. Short bursts, long bursts, pauses, almost like a code. "Can you understand what it's saying?" Marcus asked. "Some of it. The meaning is coming slowly." Lysa opened her eyes and looked at him. "It calls itself Zethka. It says it has been waiting for someone who could achieve true sight. It says my visor allows me to see what its people once could see, before they changed. Its people? You mean there's an entire civilization down there? No, just Zethka. The others went to sleep long ago. But Zethka stayed awake to watch for something. Something dangerous that might return. Marcus ran his hand through his hair. This is crazy. We accidentally built a device that let you contact an ancient alien? Cud. Not just any alien, Lisa said softly. Marcus, I think Zethka's people created the Zelani. The bioelectric sight my species has? It is a gift from Zethka's race. But it was deliberately limited. Limited how? Normal Zelani sight only shows living things. But true sight shows everything. Energy patterns. Quantum fields. The fundamental forces that hold reality together. Zethka's people could see all of this naturally. They gave the early Zelani a small piece of that ability, but blocked the rest. Why would they limit it? Because true sight comes with great responsibility. Those who can see the deep patterns of the universe can also change them. They can affect reality itself. Zethka's people decided that young races should grow slowly into such power. Marcus felt like his head was spinning. So, when I built your visor, you accidentally bypassed their limitations. The visor combines human technology with Zelani biology in a way that restores something close to the original true sight. The pulsing lights suddenly became urgent, flashing rapidly. Lisa pressed her hands to the sides of the visor, her face tightening with concentration. What is it saying now? Warning, Lisa said quickly. There are ships coming. Zelani Corporation mining vessels. They are planning to start deep mining operations in 2 days. Marcus checked his schedule display. She was right. He had forgotten about the mining expansion. So? That's what this place is for. No, you do not understand. If they start deep mining, they will damage Zethka's systems. And worse, the mining will send signals into deep space. Signals that could attract something terrible. Attract what? The thing Zethka has been watching for. The reason it stayed awake, while its people slept. Something called the Void Swarm. The lights went out completely for a moment, then came back on. Lisa was breathing heavily now. Sweat beading on her forehead. The visor is showing me more now. Images from Zethka's memory. The Void Swarm is. It is like a plague of living darkness. It consumes entire worlds, entire civilizations. Zethka's people built monitoring stations throughout the galaxy to watch for its return. Keth 7 is one of those stations. Marcus felt cold fear settling in his stomach. How long has it been gone? Millions of years. But the quantum patterns Zethka monitors suggest it may be returning. And if the mining operation damages the monitoring systems here, no one will know until it is too late. We have to warn them. Tell the corporation what's down there. Lisa shook her head. They will not believe us. They will think we are crazy humans and broken Zelani, telling impossible stories. And even if they believe us, they may try to take Zethka apart to study it. Then what do we do? Zethka is asking me to help it restore the monitoring network, not just here, but throughout the galaxy. The other stations have gone dark over the millennia. They need someone with true sight to reactivate them. Marcus stared at her. That sounds incredibly dangerous. Yes, but Marcus, if we do nothing, the mining will begin. The monitoring station will be destroyed. And if the Void Swarm returns, no one will see it coming until entire star systems start disappearing. The lights pulsed again, urgently. Lisa listened to the pattern, then turned to Marcus with fear in her eyes. The first mining ship just dropped out of hyperspace. We are out of time. Marcus looked out the window and saw it. A massive industrial vessel approaching the asteroid. Behind it, he could see the energy signatures of more ships preparing to drop out of hyperspace. "How long before they start mining?" he asked. 18 hours, Lisa replied. 18 hours to save the galaxy. Marcus looked at the young Zelani girl standing next to him, wearing a crude visor he had built in his workshop, claiming she could communicate with an ancient god, and warning about a cosmic threat that could destroy everything. 6 months ago, he would have called for a medical team. Now, looking into her earnest face and remembering how precisely she had predicted the arrival of the mining ships, he found himself believing every word. "Okay," he said. "Tell Zethka we're in. What do we need to do?" The mining ships completed their approach as the station's night cycle began. Marcus watched through the observation windows as massive vessels took position around the asteroid. Their industrial equipment gleamed under harsh work lights, ready to tear into Keth 7's surface. Lisa had not moved from the observation deck for hours. The visor pulsed with soft light as she maintained contact with the entity below. Sometimes, she spoke quietly, in response to patterns only she could see. Other times she simply listened, her face showing wonder and growing fear in equal measure. "Zethka is sharing more of its memories," she told Marcus during one of her brief breaks. "I understand now why the progenitors, that was their true name, limited our sight. The universe is far more dangerous than young species realize." End quote. "Tell me," Marcus said, settling beside her with 2 cups of coffee. "The galaxy goes through cycles," Lisa explained. "Long periods of growth and civilization, followed by periods of destruction. The void swarm is part of the destruction cycle. It appears every few million years, consumes everything it can reach, then disappears back into the deep void between galaxies. If it's so predictable, why didn't anyone prepare for it? Because few civilizations last long enough to see 2 cycles. By the time the swarm returns, most races have either evolved beyond physical form or destroyed themselves. The knowledge is lost." Marcus sipped his coffee and tried to process this information. "So, the progenitors built these monitoring stations to watch for the swarm's return?" "Yes, and to maintain a network that could warn everyone when it came back. But the network has been dormant for so long that most civilizations think the monitoring stations are just unusual asteroids. Like we did. How many stations are there? Thousands. Scattered across the galaxy. Most are still functional but sleeping. They need someone with true sight to wake them up and restore the connections between them." Marcus looked out at the mining ships. "And if those miners damage this station before we can restore the network, then we lose the central coordination hub. The other stations might still function independently, but they could not share information or coordinate warnings. It would be like having thousands of guards who cannot talk to each other." The lights dimmed again as another wave of communication came from Zethka. Lisa's expression grew more troubled as she listened. "What now?" Marcus asked. "The quantum sensors are detecting disturbances at the galaxy's edge. The void swarm may be closer than Zethka originally calculated. Not thousands of years away, but perhaps only decades. That's still a long time. Not for something like this. The swarm moves slowly, but once it begins its approach, nothing can stop it except a coordinated defense from every major civilization in the galaxy. And that coordination requires advance warning from the monitoring network." Marcus stood up and began pacing. "Okay. So, we need to restore the network before the miners destroy this station. How do we do that?" Zethka says the process requires direct interface with the central systems deep inside the asteroid. I would need to go down there, connect my visor to the main control matrix, and manually reactivate each station throughout the galaxy. How dangerous is that? Lisa was quiet for a moment. The progenitor technology was not designed for beings like me. Even with the visor, interfacing directly with their systems could damage my mind. Or kill me. Marcus stopped pacing. "No, absolutely not. We'll find another way." There is no other way. Zethka is too old and too damaged to do it alone, and no one else has true sight. Then we make more visors. Build devices for other people. There is no time. The miners start their work in 12 hours. And Marcus, even if there was time, not everyone can handle true sight. Zethka says my mind is unusually flexible. Probably because I have lived my whole life, adapting to different ways of perceiving the world. Marcus felt a familiar frustration building. Throughout his career, he had solved problems through engineering and persistence. There was always another approach, always a way to reduce risk while achieving the objective. But this situation seemed to offer only terrible choices. What about the miners themselves? He asked. Can we convince them to delay the operation? I tried to reach their commander while you were getting coffee. She would not listen. She said mining schedules are set by corporate headquarters and cannot be changed for unsubstantiated claims from station personnel. Did you tell her about the ancient civilization? I tried. She said if there were archaeological artifacts, they could be excavated and preserved during the mining process. She does not understand that the mining will destroy technology more advanced than anything our civilization has ever seen. Marcus slammed his fist against the window. Outside, preparation lights on the mining vessels showed that work was already beginning. Soon, they would start the deep scanning that preceded actual excavation. Marcus, Lysa said softly, there is something else, something Zethka has not told you yet. What now? The entity is not just a survivor from an ancient race. It is what the progenitors became when they chose to merge with their technology rather than face extinction. Zethka is essentially a digital consciousness housed in quantum computing systems that span this entire asteroid. A digital consciousness? You mean like an artificial intelligence? More than that. It was once a living being who chose to transfer its mind into their most advanced technology. It did this so it could survive long enough to watch for the void swarm's return. Marcus felt a chill. All of them, eventually. When the progenitors realized they could not stop the natural cycles of galactic destruction, they chose to become something that could survive those cycles. Most went into deep hibernation, but a few like Zethka stayed active to maintain their monitoring systems. So, when you interface with the controls, I will be connecting my mind directly with the digital consciousness of an ancient godlike being. The visor will protect me somewhat, but there are no guarantees. Marcus looked at this young woman who had grown up believing she was worthless, now calmly discussing sacrificing herself to save the galaxy. The unfairness of it made him angry. There has to be another way, he said firmly. Perhaps, but not one we can find in 12 hours. The mining ship suddenly became more active. Scanning beams began sweeping across the asteroid's surface, and Marcus could see preparation for the first excavation sites. Lysa stood up, her decision made. I need to go down there now, before the mining interferes with Zethka's systems. Wait. Marcus grabbed her arm gently. If you're really going to do this, then you're not going alone. I'm coming with you. Marcus, you cannot interface with progenitor technology. Your mind is not prepared for true sight. Maybe not, but I'm good with technology, and I built your visor. If something goes wrong with the interface, you might need an engineer who understands the human components. Lysa smiled. The first real smile Marcus had seen from her. You are very stubborn. It's gotten me this far. The lights around them pulsed in what Marcus was learning to recognize as Zethka's attention. Lisa listened to the pattern, then nodded. Zethka agrees. It says, having the visor's creator present might help if there are compatibility problems. But it warns that the journey to the central chamber will show us things that could change our understanding of reality itself. Marcus picked up his toolkit and checked his emergency supplies. Lady, my reality got turned upside down the day I met you. I think I can handle a little more weirdness. Together, they left the observation deck and headed for the maintenance shaft that would take them deep into the asteroid. Neither of them noticed that the mining ships had detected unusual energy readings from inside Keth 7 and were moving their timeline up. They now had 6 hours, not 12. The maintenance shaft led deeper into the asteroid than Marcus had known was possible. According to his maps, they should have reached solid rock after 50 meters. Instead, they descended through carved passages that stretched far into the asteroid's heart. "How far down are we going?" Marcus asked as they climbed down the narrow ladder. "Zeth-Ka says the central chamber is nearly at the asteroid's core," Lisa replied. The entire interior was hollowed out millions of years ago and filled with quantum processing matrices. The passage walls around them began to change as they descended. What had started as rough rock became smooth, metallic surfaces covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift when Marcus wasn't looking directly at them. "The visor is showing me more detail now," Lisa said. "These patterns are not decorative. They are part of the computational system. Every surface down here is covered in quantum circuits more complex than anything our civilizations have ever imagined." Marcus ran his hand along the wall. To his touch, it felt like smooth metal, but he could see faint lights moving through the patterns, like data flowing through circuits. "We're climbing down through the inside of a computer," he realized. "The largest computer ever built, and we are about to meet its primary user." They reached the bottom of the shaft and found themselves in a vast chamber carved from the asteroid's heart. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them, while the floor was covered in hexagonal platforms that pulsed with soft light. At the center of the chamber sat a structure that took Marcus's breath away. It looked like a throne made of crystallized lightning. Energy flowed through transparent conduits, in patterns too complex for human eyes to follow. And sitting in the throne, barely visible through the dancing energy fields, was a figure that might once have been alive. "Zeth-Ka," Lisa whispered. The figure turned toward them, and Marcus felt his mind strain to process what he was seeing. The being was tall and graceful, but its body seemed to be made of the same energy that flowed through the chamber. It was more concept than creature, more idea than individual. When Zeth-Ka spoke, the words came not through sound, but directly into their minds. "Welcome, young ones. Welcome to the last sanctuary of the progenitor race." Marcus wanted to respond, but found he couldn't form words. The presence of this ancient being was overwhelming, like standing next to a star. Lisa stepped forward, the visor allowing her to function more normally in the entity's presence. "We came as quickly as we could, but the miners will begin their work soon. How much time do we have?" "Less than you hoped. Their scanning beams are already interfering with my outer systems. We must begin the network restoration immediately." Zeth-Ka gestured to a platform near the throne. "Place yourself there, child. I will guide you through the interface process." Lisa walked to the platform, but Marcus grabbed her arm before she could step onto it. "Wait. Before we do this, I need to understand something. If activating this network is so important, why didn't you do it years ago? Why wait until now?" Zeth-Ka's attention turned to Marcus, and he felt his knees buckle under the weight of that ancient gaze. "Because, young engineer, the network was not designed to be activated by one mind alone. It requires the processing power of an entire progenitor consciousness. I am old and damaged. I needed someone with true sight to share the burden. What will happen to Lisa when she connects with the network? Her consciousness will expand to encompass thousands of monitoring stations across the galaxy. She will briefly experience awareness on a cosmic scale. It is intense. End." Marcus looked at Lisa, who was standing calmly despite what they had just heard. "I am sure that if we do nothing, the galaxy may face destruction without warning. That is not a choice I can live with." Before Marcus could argue further, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Warning lights flashed as Zeth-Ka's form became more agitated. "The miners have begun early excavation. They are using deep penetration scanners that are disrupting my primary systems. We have minutes, not hours." Lisa stepped onto the platform without hesitation. "Tell me what to do." Energy fields immediately surrounded her, and Marcus watched in fascination and terror as connections formed between her visor and the alien technology. Streams of light flowed from the platform into the chamber's walls, and Lysa's eyes began to glow with the same energy that filled Zethka's form. "I can see them," she said, her voice echoing strangely. "All the monitoring stations. Thousands of points of light scattered across the galaxy. Most are dark, but some are stirring as they sense the network awakening." Marcus monitored the energy readings on his portable scanner. "Lysa, your biosigns are all over the place. Your heart rate is through the roof." "It is overwhelming. I can sense civilizations I never knew existed. Entire species going about their lives, unaware that darkness approaches from beyond the galaxy's edge." More alarms sounded as the mining operation above intensified. Through his scanner, Marcus could see that the excavation was getting dangerously close to critical systems. "How many stations have you activated?" Marcus asked. 47 so far." "But Marcus, there is a problem. Many of the stations are damaged or have been destroyed by natural disasters over the millions of years since they were built. The network has huge gaps." Zethka's voice filled their minds with urgency. "Activate what you can. An incomplete network is better than no network at all." "I am trying, but some stations are not responding to standard activation codes. They may require manual repair." Marcus suddenly had an idea. "What if we don't just restore the old network? What if we expand it?" "What do you mean?" Lysa asked. "Our civilizations have built communication networks, sensor arrays, and space stations throughout inhabited space. What if we modify some of those to serve as additional monitoring points? Human and Zilani technology might not be as advanced as progenitor systems, but we have a lot more of it." Zethka's form pulsed with what Marcus hoped was approval. Ingenious. Young civilizations often overcome limitations through quantity and creativity. "But can your technologies interface with the progenitor network?" Marcus looked at Lysa, connected to alien technology through a visor he had built from spare parts. "I think we're about to find out." 2. "Marcus, I need you to access the station's main communication array. If you can patch it into the system, while I maintain the connection, we might be able to use it as a relay point." Marcus ran for the chamber's exit. "How long can you hold the connection?" "As long as necessary. Go." Marcus climbed the shaft faster than he had ever climbed anything in his life. Above him, he could hear the mining equipment getting closer. When he reached the communications center, he found emergency messages flashing on every screen. The mining supervisor was demanding to know why energy readings from inside the asteroid were spiking beyond all reasonable levels. Ignoring the messages, Marcus began frantically rewiring the station's communication array. If he could create a bridge between human technology and the progenitor network, they might be able to turn every human and Zilani space station into a monitoring post. Deep below, Lysa's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "I can feel the network spreading. Each new connection makes the others stronger. Marcus, your plan is working." Marcus made the final connection and felt the entire station hum with new energy. Through the communication array, he could sense the growing network of monitoring posts. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "Network restoration at 60%, Lysa reported. "But Marcus, the quantum sensors are detecting something at the galaxy's edge. The void swarm. It is not decades away. It is already here." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. "How close?" 2 years. Maybe 3. It has been traveling through deep space, moving slower than Zethka calculated. But it has been coming for centuries. By the time the network detected it, it was already too close to stop. Then what was the point of all this? Zethka's voice filled the communications system. "The point, young engineer, is that now we can warn everyone. Now we can coordinate a defense. The galaxy will not face this threat blind and unprepared." Through the station's external cameras, Marcus could see the mining ships receiving emergency communications from across known space. The network was working, sending out warnings and battle plans to every major civilization. Network restoration complete, Lysa announced. The galaxy is now watching the darkness that approaches. And thanks to your human stubbornness, Marcus, we have more eyes watching than the progenitors ever dreamed possible. The mining ships were pulling back from the asteroid, their crews too stunned by the galaxy-wide emergency broadcasts to continue their work. In the central chamber, Lisa slowly disconnected from the network, her consciousness returning to her own body. Marcus found her sitting on the platform, the visor dim but still functional. She looked exhausted but triumphant. "So," she said with a weak smile, "I guess I am not broken after all." "No," Marcus replied. "You're the furthest thing from broken. You're the guardian of an entire galaxy." Outside the asteroid, ships from dozens of civilizations were already changing course, heading to defensive positions coordinated by the ancient network. The battle for the galaxy's survival would be long and difficult, but thanks to a human engineer's compassion and a Zelani girl's courage, it would not be fought in darkness. For the first time in millions of years, the galaxy was truly awake.